Hello and welcome to this instalment of Talkin Trim. I'm Jonathon Skinner and today we're looking at the front seat kit as well as the centre cushion armrest for the Austin Healey models. Now this specific video is focused on the early Austin Healey models and it's only really focused on big Healeys, but the 104 and 106 models. So effectively that's going to be BN1, BN2 and the early BN4s before chassis number 68,959 roughly speaking. But also some BN6s. Now, ultimately, the factory production line was very inconsistent in terms of the crossover date and month, etc. And of course, they were using old stock of frames and whatnot that they would have had lying around in the factory. So with that in mind, we always do recommend that you send us photos of your seats and your seat frames where possible so that we can identify them as the early or the late versions. But that's effectively where the changeover happened. It roughly coincides with when they changed from Longbridge to Abingdon in terms of the factory that they're made at as well. But general rule of thumb, BN1s, BN2s, the early BN4s and then some BN6s would have had this version of seats and potentially armrest as well. Now again, the seat covers and the armrest should go hand in hand, but they didn't always, so just keep that in mind. Just to roughly show you what I'm talking about, let me zoom in the book here. This is the early sets. This is a set we're talking about here where the backrest backs incorporated the seat mechanism going all the way round in one piece as per that there. Whereas the later versions, they had a separate sort of glove section that went over the top, so it effectively cut that cover there and you had a separate piece that went on. You can just make out the seam line that I'm talking about there for the late versions. The earlier versions, you see, it incorporates it all the way around that section there. So that was the obvious visual difference between them. Apart from that, there were some other subtle differences and a decent amount of the seat hardware did change as well, so bear that in mind. Now this video I'm going to go over details the actual seat covers, also the centre cushion armrest, which is this area here, which is the part that went over the gearbox tunnel, which again there were a couple of different versions of. And then I've got elements of the seat hardware which you may or may not require depending on the level of restoration you're going for. And then obviously we've got an example of a trim seat there at the back. Now it's worth noting at this stage that this particular kit here is full leather. We can offer a 3-tier option in terms of materials. At one end of the scale, you've got everything in vinyl. So all the seat covers would be vinyl, the surrounds here would be vinyls, the backs of the seat covers would be vinyl. At the other end of the scale, you have full leather, which is an upgrade option, not originally offered by the factory or very, very rarely, which everything is leather. So there's no vinyl elements to it. Even these parts here are leather. The backs of the seat covers are leather as well. And then you've got the middle ground option, which tended to be the original factory option. We refer to that as leather-faced, meaning the bits that touch your body, the facings of the seat, are in leather, but the backs and the surrounds, etc., will be vinyl. For example, on these set of seats here, that backrest bit, rear panel, will be vinyl, and the retainer there will be vinyl, and the strips here that went around the locating frames would also be vinyl. But like I say, we offer a 3-tier option. So when you are comparing prices with other companies out there, do bear that in mind. Now, just to confuse things, what we refer to as leather-faced, which is the mostly factory spec option, other companies refer to as leather. That should not be confused with our full leather. Our full leather, like I say, everything is leather, whereas leather-faced is the factory spec option. I don't believe many other companies, if any other companies within the industry, offer a full leather kit. So just make sure you don't confuse the pricing of our full leather kit with their leather kit, because that is akin to our leather-faced kit, if that makes sense. Also, just while on that subject, pricing is a very strange metric to try and choose your interior trim supplier. Ultimately, of course, price matters, but at the end of the day, quality is remembered long after price is forgotten, and our kits are known for their quality, workmanship, and of course the most important part, fitment, suitability fitment. That is the reason that we have supplied most of the major Austin Healey clubs in the world. We've supplied their top tier members, should we say, their presidents, etc. We've also supplied several of the US concourse judging committees interior trim, so do bear that in mind. We have been given the stamp of approval in that regard for making these sort of kits, so bear that in mind. Price is of course important, but ultimately quality and fitment are what will stand the test of time. This particular kit has been done in Austin Healey Blue, or AH Blue as we refer to it. Now AH Blue, Austin Healey's did use 2 shades of blue for their restorations, or rather on the original factory production line, both of which were a darkish shade, and we've got what we call dark blue, which is really dark, or Austin Healey Blue, which is still a dark blue but it's slightly lighter. Now depending on who you ask, it definitely did happen, they did use 2 types of blues, but they just didn't change any of their descriptions. So all the way through on their heritage certificates it will always just reference blue, but that shade of blue may have changed, so just bear that in mind. But yeah, this is Austin Healey Blue, so it's still a dark blue, but it's a lot more of a bluey dark blue, whereas the dark blue is really dark. Of course, we do offer a sample service, and in fact we insist on a sample service, so if you're about to place an order with us, we will always send you samples so that you can sign off the exact shade and finish. When it comes to leather elements as well, we can also offer 2 grain finishes of leather for most of the colours that we offer. This has been done in smooth, which as you can see hasn't got much of grain to it, but we can also offer, that's a good example up there, this is saddle grey, completely different colour, but you can see the grain finish on that versus smooth there, so bear that in mind. For most colours we can offer both grain finishes. Like I say, this has been done to an upgrade spec, so everything has been done in leather. Even these surrounds here have been done in leather, so it's a full leather kit, and it's to match a full leather interior kit that we've done for a gentleman over in Australia. So even the door panels, absolutely everything have been done in leather for his car there. It's been done in white piping, which was an original colour scheme option, and yeah, let's dive on in. So seat covers, the actual cover kit itself, you've effectively got a pair of cushions, bit your bum goes on, and a pair of backrest squabs, the bit you lean against, and then you get material for the surround of the locating frames there, and then you also get what they call hidem, which is used to cover up the trimming process at the back edge here, which I'll show you on the trim seat in a second. And then you get the sort of chrome hidem finishes, call them little shields, so they look like shields which covered up the ends of the hidem. Again, I'll show you all of that down there when we get there. But let's go over the actual seat cover kit to start with. So we're ignoring this section here, this is the centre cushion armrest. So the seat covers are sold as that kit there. For vinyl kit, everything would be vinyl. For a full leather kit, everything would be leather, as per this one. For a leather-faced factory spec kit, then these pieces here would be vinyl. When it comes to the cushion bases, they're actually always just leather for the factory spec because they had no retainers on them. But then the backrests, you had the retainer here would be vinyl, and then the back of the backrest cover would also be vinyl. Everything else would be leather, so the horseshoes leather, the pleated panels leather, and then the inside element of the sort of seat mechanisms is also leather. So that's the breakdown between all the different material side of things that we can offer. Like I say, this one's an upgrade full leather kit. So let's start with the cushion covers. Cushion covers are handed, i.e. you have a right hand and a left hand. And we always base the handedness on how you sit in the car facing forward. So ignore where the steering wheel is, that is inconsequential. It's purely how, if you were sat in the car looking forward, is the seat cover on the right side of the car or the left side of the car? So the cushion covers are handed. This is the right hand cover. We do label them up, RH, LH, but also it's worth noting that the way our CNC CAD cuts work is for any right hand related items, you will see a triangle on any pieces that matters for. So you can see that triangle there indicates right hand. But if you're unsure, on the unlikely event we've forgotten to label them up, just send me a photo and I will let you know. But it's actually only the surround here that's made it handed. You can see we do a seam here on the inside edge, and that's to help the tapered angle during the trimming process, where the hardware obviously had a cutaway for where the gearbox tunnel comes out. So obviously it's to help it trim round there, which you can see down there on the trimmed version there. So that's the cushion covers there. A bit more detail on those. They're obviously genuine tuck and roll pleats, as we do with all of our seats here. You have an extended pleated panel, which then turns into effectively a retainer during the trimming process there. Horseshoes have foam padding on them. They didn't originally. We've added that because it makes it easier to attain a nicer finish on them, so bear that in mind. And then they're piped, obviously. Now the piping, again, worth noting that this is something that we do correctly that others don't necessarily do. We use leathercloth for our piping. Leathercloth, also known as vinide or sometimes Rexin, is the original material that they used way back when during this manufacturing production era. And it's a thinner version, or rather a thinner material than vinyl, but more importantly, it doesn't snag. So you rub your sort of nail down it and it doesn't grip and snag like vinyl does. And so we have, I'd say 80% of the colours that we can offer, we have leathercloth piping for. We have it specially made. Unfortunately, some colours we have to revert to vinyl, but it's worth noting that the majority of the rest of the restoration industry always just use vinyl for their piping. It makes piping bigger, more bulbous, because it's wrapped round the piping core so tightly as well. It, like I say, easily snags when it's wrapped around something so tightly. So leathercloth has so many pros versus vinyl for when it's used for piping, and the reason other companies out there use vinyl for their piping is merely a cost-saving exercise. They don't want to have to stop both vinyl and leathercloth in all of their colours, whereas we like to do things properly. So bear that in mind. I will be doing a blog post on it, and I will be doing a video detailing that, but it's one of the many reasons that we're known for our quality and workmanship in that regard, because we make sure that we use the correct, most suitable materials for these sorts of things. So yeah, like I say, piping in leathercloth. It's worth noting, obviously, when the seat covers on these ones had contrasting piping on them, it was both the inside and outside elements that were piped in a contrasting colour, as per what you can see here. It's worth noting at this point as well, definitely check out the videos at the end of this video, as I've done several other videos detailing the various Austin Healey seats and going into more detail on them than I might do in these videos, as I do all of these videos off the top of my head, so undoubtedly I'm going to miss something. But yeah, they're effectively the cushion covers there. The backrest covers, like I say, genuine tuck and roll pleats as per the cushions, but instead of having the extended pleated panel as per the cushions, they have their own separate retainer, which is that piece there. That would obviously be vinyl on a set of leather-faced factory spec seats. Again, the horseshoes have the foam padding on them, which again isn't original, but does allow for a nice, neater finish during the trimming process, or at least helps you attain a neater finish. The piping on the surround, piping again contrasts on both the inside and the outside of the horseshoe there. On the outside element there, we do extend it, and that effectively goes down the back of here during the trimming process, and then the hide-em does exactly what it says on the tin. It hides the piping, that's why it's called hide-em, I believe, during the trimming process. So they are extended deliberately to allow for that. Obviously this backrest piece has been done in leather on this one because it's an upgrade kit there. The hide-em, which is this stuff here, as you can see on the back, goes all the way around, and then you get these little chrome finishes which go on the end of them and tidy it all up there. So that's part of the tacking process, which I will show you on that trim seat over there. But that's effectively the backrest covers. So that's effectively the seat cover kit. Those bits there, which are used for the surround of the locating frame, a pair of cushion covers, pair of backrest covers. In theory, actually, it's two off of the backrest covers. They are not handed. And then the hide-em finishes and the actual hide-em material itself. So that's the seat covers. Now, while we're here, we've got the centre cushion armrest. Now, centre cushion armrest, this is the saddle version, as we refer, because it looks like a saddle of a horse when you put it in the car over the gearbox. Now the early cars, the BN1s, the BN2s and the early BN4s all had this version here, but within that range they had two versions. They had the long version, which is this version, and they had the short version, which looks very much like that, but it's slightly shorter. Again, it depends on the year, month, chassis number and what they felt like that day. By far and away the long version, I would say, is the much more commonly seen version of the centre cushion armrest. Let's just see, and I'm sure I've done a video detailing the different versions of those, so be sure to check that out. Where are we? There we are. So saddle armrest sort of bent over the actual gearbox tunnel, so that's the that cover there, not to be confused with this one here, which is the much later version, which actually sat on top of the gearbox. So when I refer to the short and long saddle version, they both look like that, but one's slightly shorter. This is a completely different centre cushion armrest, so completely ignore that. That's the one that came in kind of during the Abingdon era of manufacture, shall we say, for the majority of the 3000s minus the BJ8s. So centre cushion armrest, again, genuine tuck and roll pleats. It then had, there's the pleats there, it then had a foam padding in the middle there and the bottom surround section. It was piped at both ends in a contrasting colour, and then bound, which is the edging material used for carpet, again done in leathercloth. And you had this cutaway here, which was for the handbrake. And then we supply material to recover the bodywork of the handbrake, so it effectively went like that, so that none of the bodywork was on show there. And then you get the fixings. So they are the 10X fixings, male and female versions. Don't know why one's out. Oh, there we are, that's why. So you had 10X fixings there, male, sorry, yeah, it's the female elements. So they screw into one another effectively, and that's part of that kit. So that kit is sold completely independently to the front seat covers, but should be considered at the same time because obviously it's made in the same material, so you want to think about batches and whatnot. So I think that's the covers side of it done. Let's move on to the hardware. Now obviously the hardware only affects the seats, it doesn't affect the centre cushion armrest. Now the hardware was unique to the seat covers, barring the seat foams. These seat foams, backrest and cushion bases, they were used on all of the Austin Healey, the big Healey models, apart from the BJ8, which they then changed subtly. So effectively BN1, BN2, BN4, BN6, BN7, BT7 and BJ7. But the other elements in this video, the locating frames here, the base pans there, the tacking strips, the actual backrest framework there, they are all unique to the seat covers that we're talking about here. So the ones that basically incorporated the mechanism that went all the way around. The later ones had different elements of the hardware. Let's start with the base element of things, the bit your bum goes on. So you have obviously the locating frames, which effectively went onto the seat runners in the footwell of the car. They're metal, they're always black. They had these sort of tabs, stopper tabs on the back of them, and then the metal elements there for the backrest to go into, but then you'd use some screws and nuts, which again I'll show you in a second. Then you had the base pans, which were woodwork, and they had the kind of raised lip at the front there. And then you had the foam, moulded foam, so they're latex foams. They are handed, you can see the cutaway there. So obviously the cutaway you have there, and you have there. That indicates it's obviously the right hand seat as you're facing forward in the car, because that's where the gearbox starts protruding out there. You then lay them all on top of each other here. This is obviously the left hand, so they sit all in there like that. Now obviously as you just lay them on top of each other, you can see that everything looks like there's gaps here, there and everywhere. Don't worry about that. During the trimming process it all becomes a bit more obvious, and the gaps close up, and yeah, so don't overthink that section of things. We've used these same hardware pieces for decades now to good effect. Not saying they're perfect, and for complete transparency, barring the woodwork side of things, we buy all of these parts in. But they are one of the major Healey, should we say, specialists in the industry, and that's not to say they're perfect, but they do the job well at the price point they're offered at. And I say one of the main things to really be mindful of, and I've touched on this numerous times in my videos, is the foams. They're molded foams. They do, I would say, 80% of the job well, but the last 20% you really have to work with. But again, for the price point that you get them at, it's better than trying to make your own foam, how to cut foam, etc. So just bear that in mind, but do sure check out my other videos where I go into a bit more depth on these sort of things. Speaking of depth, cushion base. Some people complain it's a bit too firm or a bit too high. Obviously that's completely subjective to who you are as a person. Depends on your height, depends on your weight. But obviously these cars were designed during an era that arguably people were not quite as big as we are these days. So you do have to sort of counter that accordingly. There are a couple of tactics that you can do. We've done this for people before, or advised on how to do it. Is you can get a drill piece and do the holes underneath, which is very much akin to how the Dunlop latex foams were originally supplied. So bear that in mind. That's a way of doing it that basically meant that when you sit in it, some of the air comes out the bottom of it and everything lowers down. And we've even gone to the extent of slicing some of the middle section out of the foam and then gluing it all back together. So it really does depend on what kind of look you're going for and those sorts of things, but we're more than happy to help people in that regard. But needless to say, we know that if you spend the time and energy on these sorts of things, it will turn out very nicely, and we're more than happy to help and guide on that regard. So overall the hardware works. It's not plug and play. You can't just put it all together and expect it to work amazingly. As with classic cars, any elements of classic cars, you really do have to work at it to get it to work and look the best it can be. So that's effectively how they all look when it's semi put together like that. Then moving on to the backrest element of things, or the squabs as some people refer to it, you obviously have the framework there. Now the framework between early and late ones varied. The main difference was that the late ones had reinforcement strips going across the back of them there. There were some other subtle differences, but certainly visually that is the main thing to look out for. Then the molded foams, similar sort of principle as the cushion bases. The backrests themselves aren't handed, they are literally singular as such, whereas those had to cut away for the gearbox, the backrest didn't. And again, they do most of the job well, but I have actually done a video detailing how to adapt the foams to get it to work correctly for originality and for our seat covers. Very, very brief overview of it is effectively the manufacture of these foams. The horseshoe element here is not the correct depth, it's quite significantly out. They've made their seat covers suit their foams to make the whole trimming job much easier. You just pull the covers over the top of them, but you get terrible bagginess in the seats, in the trim seats. And you can see here ours are lovely, no bagginess in them whatsoever, and that's the finish you want, and also that is the correct measurement there. Whereas again, I've done a video detailing that. The other suppliers out there, the horseshoe element is a lot thinner like that, and it looks very odd when it's in the car, in my opinion. Anyway, backrest foams, they do the majority of the job well, but you do have to make some subtle changes, very easy changes, to get them to get the correct look and finish. And again, they're not quite plug and play. We've kind of forced this one in here, but effectively you want to be scrunching that up and forcing it all in place there to get it to fit correctly. But again, check out, well, contact me if you need some tips on upholstering and fitting these. Even professional trimmers manage to muck these up. I've seen some horrendous examples over the years of so-called professionals trying to trim these seats up, which is why we're doing more and more trimming in-house. People literally send their seat frames from all over the world for us to do, because they want to make sure that they end up with a seat that looks like that. So yeah, bear that in mind. More than happy to do that, whether you want to send us your seat frames, or we can just do it on brand new hardware as per these ones here. So that's the backrest foam, and then you get the plywood tacking strips. These are unique to this version of the Healey because they go on the outside. Sorry, it's going to be hard to do one-handed. They're flexi ply, so they bend round the back of the frame here. If I turn this frame over, they effectively sit round and bend round like that. They're riveted on, and then part of the trimming process is to tack the cover onto that there. And I've just realised there is something missing from this video, but I think it's within arm's reach. It is. Sorry, bear with me. There we go. We also offer the padding for the back of the frame there. And that actually, currently we've incorporated the winged element of same as the seat cover there, but actually I think going forward the majority of our kits will be cut there, because it's a bit of a subject of debate whether you want to be foaming that section there on these early cars because of the tacking strips there, because it creates a bit of a ridge. But easy enough change to make if you need it. But effectively, I think once we've got rid of our current stock of these ones here, we will be doing it where we cut them down to there. So if you get a kit from us and it is like that, don't worry about it. It is done deliberately like that. They effectively go onto the back of the frames there. So that's effectively all the hardware. Now, it's worth noting we do sell these pieces in different kit formats. So all of the cushion base bits are sold individually, apart from the base pans there, which are sold as a base pans, which are sold as a pair. So they're sold as a pair, i.e. one car set's worth. But anything that's like the metalwork there and the foams there are sold individually. So we sell a right hand locating frame, a right hand foam there, but the base pans are sold as a pair. When it comes to the backrests, the framework there is sold individually, so you need 2 per car set. The foam there is sold individually, so you need 2 per car set. But the tacking strips here are sold as a car set, so effectively you get 2 pairs or 4 units, one car set's worth, so 2 seats worth are sold as a kit there. And then when it comes to these foam elements here, you need a pair, which we sell as a pair, so just 1 pair for that element there. So I think that covers it. Now let's just have a look at the trim seat. I've covered elements of this, and obviously I have done other videos. Now this is one of our display seats, so if it looks a bit dusty and whatnot, it's because it's been on the wall. Hence the massive Velcro, double-sided Velcro on the bottom there. That's not original, but yeah, this is the kind of look and feel you want to be looking for here. And if you go online, you'll easily see on the blogs how notoriously tight-fitting these backrest covers are. The bases are fairly straightforward to trim, but the backrest covers are a pain. They look so simple, but they are really, really quite labour-intensive. And you want to make sure you're getting a lovely, pristine finish on that, like this one here. Barely any wrinkles or air gaps in it whatsoever, but they are so tight to fit, especially around this area here and getting it all around these corners here. It really does take some skill and experience to do that sort of thing, which is again why we are getting customers all over the world asking us to do their seats for them so that they get the results they deserve. But yeah, if you compare and contrast to other suppliers out there, you'll see, one, this gap here is wrong, but also you tend to find it so baggy around this area here where you've just got air gaps, and you don't want that at all. Ours are made very much like the originals, extremely tightly fitting, and they're not meant to be easy to trim. They are tough by design to make sure that when everything is said and done, you get really, really nice finishes and options on them. But as you can see, really nice fit there. If I just tilt it, you can see here, excuse the dust, that'll be the wall. This is a hide-em strip going around here that covers up the tacks that you'll use, and you can just start make out the outline of the tacking strips there. This is obviously the surround here with the stoppers on, etc., for the material at the very front section there. Ignore that white stuff there, that's because it's been diagonally on a wall upstairs in our display area. But yeah, as you can see, lovely neat finish on there, but I won't go too much into depth on that because I have done several videos showcasing trimmed up seats for the Healeys there. So I think that covers everything. Sorry, it was a bit disjointed in certain ways, especially when I realised there was a bit of foam missing. But hopefully you found this informative. So just to give a really, really quick overview. Seat covers are sold as a car set. Pair of cushion bases, pair of backrest covers, 2 strips of material for the locating frames there, and then the hide-in material and the chrome finishes for the end. So that's sold as a set. Centre cushion armrest, 2 versions, long version, short version, depending on chassis number, etc. on that one. Incorporates the cover there, a loose piece of material there, and the fixings there. Hardware element of things. The base foams are sold individually. 1 right-hand unit, 1 left-hand unit needed per car set. The backrest foams are sold singly. You will need 2 per car set. Locating frames. They are handed. You need 1 right, 1 left. Base pans, the woodwork, sold as a pair, so you need 1 pair per car set. We sell it as a car set straight away. Backrest metalwork, sold individually. You need 2. Tacking strips, they are sold as a car set, so you get 4 of them, and that's all you need for a car set, is 4 of them. Foam for the back of this panel here, you need 2. We sell it as a pair. Okay, I think I've covered my bases there. Thanks for tuning in. Be sure to check out the other videos at the end of this one. Obviously, if you've got any questions, do feel free to say anything in the comments or contact me directly via our website or email or contact form. Thanks for tuning in. Please remember to like, share and subscribe to our channel and share with other classic car enthusiasts out there. Be sure to tune in to our next edition video, and of course check out the videos at the end of this one for any other Healey restoration items that you may be wishing to consider at this point in time. And I look forward to hearing from you. Thank you very much.